my future, as I imagine my future career, never as a squatter. Actually, when I came to study in Ljubljana, my priority was just to escape from the small town, Murska Sobota. And I was rather encouraged with the song of Lou Reed, American poet, songwriter, and guitarist. And it goes like this. There is only one good thing about a small town, you know, that you want to get out. And this was really my first primary motivation to leave small town and to come to Ljubljana. Since I was expecting in Ljubljana much more fascinating people, that I could be more creative, involved in some creative process.
In Ljubljana, the capital of Slovenia, we have a very important story to tell about our past. It happened in the 90s. It happened one night in September. More accurately, it happened in the night from September 9 to September 10th in 1993. Nataša Serec will help me to tell you this story and what's important about the events from the past that are relevant for young people today and for anyone interested in alternative social and cultural models. Nataša, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me and for considering my work interesting for young listeners. We are talking about the squatting of the ex-military barracks and converting them into alternative cultural center.
And you are listening to an episode of a podcast, Female Perspectives on the Democratic Transitions of the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s. Nataša, for beginning, it would be best if you introduce yourself, please.
My name is Nataša Serec. I am coming from the rather very small town in northeast of Slovenia. And as a young student, I started to be actively involved into the Autonomous Cultural Center Metelkova activities. At the moment, I am president of Artistic Cultural Association KUD Mreža, and we are running at Metelkova within the Autonomous Center various programs, such as Artists in Residency, Gallery, Alkatraz Contemporary Art Exhibition, experimental music concerts, projects with the kindergartens, and so on and so on. But my story began, yes, and sometimes we organize also things abroad and in collaboration with other organizations all over Slovenia, not only in Autonomous Cultural Center.
Thank you. You are our guest because we are interested in your experience. Not a concept, but your experience of the democratization process and peace movement in Slovenia at the end of 1980s and beginning of the 90s. At the time, Slovenia became an independent democratic state and parted from Yugoslavia, a socialist federation. You, Nataša, in the process of democratization became a squatter. As a young woman, you squatted in a military area in downtown Ljubljana. Help us understand what made you become a squatter 30 plus years ago.
Actually, my future, as I imagine my future career, never as a squatter. Actually, when I came to study in Ljubljana, my priority was just to escape from the small town, Murska Sobota. And I was rather encouraged with the song of Lou Reed, American poet, songwriter, and guitarist. And it goes like this. There is only one good thing about the small town, you know, that you want to get out. And this was really my first primary motivation to leave small town and to come to Ljubljana. Since I was expecting in Ljubljana much more fascinating people, that I could be more creative, involved in some creative process. No any clue what this would be, but I wanted something from my life different, some not only to study. Study was actually more than excuse to get out of the small town. And I was fascinated with the stories of my good friend. He's also coming from the same small town, Borut Bruman. Unfortunately, he died in he's late already, but he encouraged me with his stories. He was extremely good storyteller and about his experiences, and he somehow involved me into that time so-called network for Metelkova. And this network, the main goal was to convert, to get the ex-military barracks for the cultural activities, to convert it into the cultural center.
Tell us more. It's a very interesting introduction, and I'm really happy that you remembered who inspired you and that person was a great storyteller. Stories are important in our lives and they're inspiring us. I'm interested, were you risking your life at the time? Give us some details of these few days of becoming a squatter in a new democratic country as Slovenia was.
I wouldn't say that I would be at any risk. We were squatting without modern technology. I was at home, probably studying or listening to music when I got a phone call to my landline. And, at that time, in 93, we haven't had mobile phones. So I got a phone call from the same person, Borut Bruman, and he told me, come quickly to Metelkova. Metelkova has been demolished, and please, we have to squat it and bring sleeping bag. I was totally confused. I packed my sleeping bag. I haven't had even a bicycle, so I was walking through the whole center to help, and I really couldn't imagine, what this means. Now we will become squatters, how this will look like. And I just, like any others, a lot of people, like 200 in that night, climbed over the fence, and slowly, after the first meeting, activities started. You could do millions of things if you wanted, because the support was huge. A lot of artists already came to set up an exhibitions. Bands would come to support with the concerts. So a lot of things. Small task I could do, and for me it was nothing any more important. Of course, not that much studying, just to be present and to start to help. Metelkova was also in the yes. The most important, what I almost forgot, why we squatted it. We squatted this. The squatting was not a first original idea, but to get them by the legal contracts to hand over from the municipality of Ljubljana to hand over the buildings, the whole area. But this, unfortunately, this agreement stuck at some point. And just coincidentally, someone who was a member of a network of Metelkova saw that there are construction machines which are demolishing some buildings. And he informed others, and the others informed all of us. And therefore, this was excuse to squat and to prevent buildings for potential future demolishing.
I will quickly summarize this interesting story. So there was, in 1991, Slovenia became an independent democratic state. As I understood, Metelkova was planned, this quarter in a downtown center of the capital was planned as something to become a cultural center of Ljubljana and of Slovenia. After 2 years, or in 1993, all of a sudden the story changed. The former military area wasn't anymore intended, or somehow you woke up one day and the building or construction machinery was about to destroy what was planned as a cultural center. You were here in Ljubljana, involved in this strong movement protecting a cultural center to become. What were your dreams at the time, Nataša? Do you remember?
At that time, you know, after got, you know, slightly involved into the peace movement, because one of my study tasks was to interview one of the most prominent peace activist, Marko Hrant, at that time. So when I met him, I was quite inspired with his story. Then, as I mentioned before, then my colleague from the same town, Boris Bruman, came and he invited me already to take a part at Network for Metelkova. And for me, this was in 1990. This was my first actually study year in Ljubljana. And I was just hoping that one day legally we will get this military barracks, and I will find my place there. I would find my among very fascinating and interesting people, because my studies was not fulfilling my interest at all. Of course, then we survived this 10 years war, which was in the summer, 91, and still the times were really difficult. All illusions, hopes, maybe they were rapidly falling, but luckily then it happened in 93. What I already mentioned, this unintentional squatting. And of course, we were all in fear, you know. Also, soon after the war in Bosnia started, and you know, all these nice plans and initiatives from middle of 80s, when we have a very strong peace movement, you know, were just somehow collapsing, because it was in this peace movement. This initiative was to demilitarize Slovenia, and also to enable to the young guys not to serve the civil military service, not only to go to the military for 1 year away from the family and losing kind of 1 year. And this was also rather successful. And also from the peace movement, it came out, you know, this initiative to convert military barracks, which were in the center, not only the military barracks at the Metelkova Street, but also another one, also rather in the center, to convert them into something else, what the all local community could participate, or to have, instead of army, something totally different, open, participative, you know, already democratic, you know, like processes. And
Nataša, you are presenting and talking about huge social and political changes at the time when there was no mobile phones, no Windows, and no emails, but there was a huge motivation that had roots already probably in the 70s, but specifically and for sure in the 80s. And what's left 30 years later, it's for sure the Metelkova Mesto, Metelkova city, the autonomous cultural zone. What's your short estimate about the peace movement from the time? What's still alive? What's still vibrant? Or it is just what happened?
You know, I have to say that probably this, since Slovenia became independent in 1991, and then afterwards we also joined NATO. So all this kind of Slovenian, as we wanted, that Slovenian army becomes professional. So you don't need to, as a young guy, you are not forced to join for 1 year, but it's your professional decision if you want this kind of profession. I mean, this is, I think, like one of the greatest failure of Slovenia joining NATO. And, you know, all these peace initiatives, you know, that we don't, as a small, democratic, independent country, that we should go for the politics of non-violence, rather collapse. What we have afterwards is also, you know, Peace Institute, the very important organization, non-governmental organization in Slovenia, and Metelkova probably as a result of strong, vibrant peace movement. Also, I think it's a successful story, nowadays 30 years old.
Indeed. Give to our listeners an idea what Metelkova Mesto is today, what to expect if they come for a visit, Nataša. And before you proceed, you told us that yesterday you just led a group of urbanists or spatial planners from Germany, that you have very interesting groups. So we perceive Metelkova on one side a place to visit as a young person, but there is also an interest of specialists or academics. So it's rather a demanding task, this question of presenting Metelkova. I hope you can do it.
Yeah, at first, you know, what newcomer sees at Metelkova is this, you know, a lot of murals, a lot of graffiti, a lot of some installations, and there are millions of such a little art works at Metelkova. So it looks like I'm presenting is like a always changing, living sculpture in the open space. And I like that the people, the visitors, look at it as a whole piece of art. And we call it like Gesamtkunstwerk Metelkova. And it consists numerous different art, like I said, interventions. And some were planned, some were not even planned. And this makes Metelkova so very much interesting for also a lot of tourists on the daily basis are visiting Metelkova. And then there are clubs. You know, when you come during the day, there is almost nothing open. Artists, which are at Metelkova, like also great number, like 50 or more, they are working in their studios. So nothing is visible, but in the evening, especially during the weekends, 8 clubs open their doors, and there is a lot interesting program going on, especially also for the youngsters. Like when I talk to the young people between like 18, 20 years old, they are. I said, "What are you doing at Metelkova? What you like to? Which club you visit?" And they are very much into the poetry evenings. They are really very popular. Many times they find interesting workshop, like graffiti workshop, for example, or they like this alternative music concerts, and But the younger, who are in the high school, they like to hang outside. They are maybe not that much into the visiting program, but more hanging and socializing with peers, and after the school or until the first bus leaves, maybe Friday evenings when they are free, and it's somehow meant to be a party day, Friday, for youngsters. There are, as I already mentioned, 8 clubs, 2 galleries, a special, very important, and the only one gay and lesbian clubs in Ljubljana, in Slovenia, actually. And a lot of DJ programs, so it is many activities to spend and free time and to socialize.
This rich program that you presented, it's actually going on through the 30 years of Metelkova existence. I know that you also based Metelkova immediately on the program. You squatted the place, but you offered immediately a diverse program. I'm interested at this point in something else. Metelkova has a very diverse structure of, in quotes, residents. How do you manage internal communication and solving problems between all these diverse groups? Because as visitors, we enjoyed the results. We saw what's offered to us, in arts or program, but internally disclose us what you learned in 30 years.
I think this is kind of It is kind of miracle that Metelkova exists 30 years, because we don't have any formal structure. There is non-umbrella organization who would manage everyone and each organization and taking decision. Everything is on super horizontal level. Only once a month we have a so-called forum, so meetings where everyone should participate, and there we decide. If there are 20 people, we decide. If there are 50 people, we decide. If there are 5 people, we decide about some common important or less important issues. And this is kind of, for many cultural researchers who are researching cultural politics, kind of miracle, because Metelkova remained, and as you see, you still see results. Sorry. And we still have a lot of visitors, and Metelkova is one of the strongest generator of the alternative program, and yearly there happens more than 1,500 events, and it's rather difficult to because there are so many individuals, perhaps more than 200, and some groups, they have completely different vision or different way of doing at Metelkova. Some are more towards the, more flirting with some capitalistic ideas or to increase the prices or so. And some are totally into the non-profit, more autonomous, more even anarchistic way of principles of working. So there are always some clashes, especially for this, because we are so different. Sometimes we say there is no one Metelkova, there are many Metelkovas, and we have to somehow coexist in this what we have. But at the end, we are all aware that for us this is really important space for artists, that they can assure their existence, having studios at Metelkova. Some have part-time jobs at Metelkova. Some of us, they have regular jobs. It's only what we do in life. It's connected to Metelkova. So, and we know that it's important also to give to the publics alternative program, alternative music styles, and it's also very important for the youngsters that they could join. They could start a career. Maybe it is the starting point, for many young bands, Slovenian and international. And then much later, they are recognized also by some more official institutional places, and also for young artists when they are still studying, we have already program of exchange with the academy, so they can already have exhibitions, perhaps group exhibition, and it's really, offering still one of the most important role. It's still offering like some starting point of the future career for young musicians and visual artists, for example.
I hear you saying that Metelkova Mesto is still an experimental place for young people, for people who are researching in arts, in culture, or in any other field, even in the field of identity, to find their place, to belong, to not be excluded or completely marginalized by the mainstream culture or society. But what I hear is that conflict is stronger than love sometimes, and that conflict actually brought to the maintenance of Metelkova Mesto to somehow navigate all the different interests. What did you learn about conflict? Because I'm asking you this because we fear many times. In most of cases, we fear conflict. What did you learn? What can you tell us? How to be, how to stay, how to navigate conflict?
There is very interesting things that what join us, it's usually some threat from outside. Like municipality wants to take a part of our squatted ground, or there are some inspectors who would like to check if everything is legal at Metelkova, but of course it's not. And then when we have some threat, then it's less conflict. Then we know it's now we have to be smarter. Now we have to overcome this internal conflict, and then we work more jointly and together. And until this lasts, it's like almost no conflict area, and then again maybe it will go on the same way. And what I learned, I learned this, that that fear is just something imaginative. Fear is nothing real. So it is really not necessary to be afraid already and constantly that someone is threatening us, that someone wants to do something. When it's time, we will come together and we will solve the problem like always until now. And I think it's really good that we don't work in the frame of some institutional frame or some not horizontal, but like following like some other institutions have internal structure, but somehow more organic. Nothing is much is written, but we know that we have to respect this. We know that we have to respect that, and nothing much is written. At the beginning of Metelkova, we even had the constitution, and when I was writing, I haven't had a computer at that time. I was writing with my hand, the points of this constitution, and one was, for example, we don't sell and we don't use drugs at Metelkova. And I looked through the window and exactly this was happening there, So, we know that's something we don't tolerate. And with all forces, we try, to stop it. And we want also to make people aware that this is maybe autonomous, and maybe there is anarchy, but this anarchy doesn't mean that there must be a chaos.
I hear you talking about courage that's needed, and I hear you talking about the value of values. Not rules, not articles, no laws, but really values. In this regard, I will continue with the final question. You are a creator and a caretaker of an archive of Metelkova Mesto. What's the purpose of an archive? What's the meaning of the archive?
Our association is, one activities of our organizations are very connected also to take care for the whole center. So many activities we do voluntarily. It's not, connected with our cultural artistic program, but something to help Metelkova. And just one of the activities we took over is archiving. Archiving, not each simple concert of a certain club, but some main, what is really important, what was important for the whole community. And this archive became rather huge, and I started as a young volunteer before we squatted Metelkova. This was my first task for Network for Metelkova, to collect press clippings. Because already at that time, it was a lot written, it was a lot of in media what Network for Metelkova wants to achieve, how are the negotiations with the municipality, and so on and so on. And then already before 93, there were a lot of articles which I was collecting. So there is quite a huge archive of press clippings, old photos were from the first days when still everything was, a lot of 3 buildings heavily demolished, then how we are jumping over the fence. And there are also later, when we have digital cameras and photo cameras, a lot of digital photos and also videos of the most important things happened at Metelkova. For example, in 2001 and 2004, we had this huge working international help from the German traveling carpenters. And this is also rather well documented because we already had video camera.
We need someone who's keeping our memory, and we need someone who keeps a record of what happens, specifically when it goes for a social and cultural and political experiment. And probably researchers are invited to use such an archive.
Students as well, media. A lot of students would come and they would ask material for their thesis or master works, and also media and other researchers. So it's constantly giving out, and we would like to put most of the things online as soon as possible, so that it's really open and available for everyone who has interest.
Nataša, thank you very much.
Thanks to you.